Hi friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. Technology is my passion. So few of the people have been asking for Hibernate integration project with MySQL. So in today's session, we'll try to see how to connect or how to interact with MySQL database by making use of Hibernate framework. Okay, so in today's session, I'll try to elaborate a little bit on Hibernate project, or I'll try to show you how to integrate your Hibernate project with your MySQL. So in this case, I'm going to make use of Hibernate 3 version. So we will go with Hibernate 3 version, and I hope like everyone knows what is meant by Maven, why we use this Maven. Okay, so let's get started. So let me right click on my navigator and then let us go to new, and then I'll simply select Java project. Either if you are able to see Java project, we can select the Java project here. If you are not able to see the Java project, so you can just go to other, and then there also you can type Java project. So under your Java folder, it will try to show you the Java project. So select the Java project. Okay, so instead of doing it as a normal Java project, so we'll try to make it as a Maven project. We'll try to make it as a Maven project. So let me select it as a Maven project. Let me say next. Okay, so whenever we want to create a simple Maven project, so in order to use Hibernate framework, so we don't require any servers. So with a normal Java kind of application, we can write our Hibernate code and we can integrate with MySQL. So in this case, okay, so we need to select a checkbox, something called as create simple project. So create simple project. So I'm going to select this particular checkbox. After selecting, just say next. Now it is asking for group ID and artifact ID. So whenever we say group ID, so group ID is nothing but what is the package structure that you want to create, and artifact ID is nothing but what is a project name you want to give. Okay, so whenever we say group ID, so group ID is nothing but your package structure inside your Java project, and artifact ID is nothing but your project name. And then we have something called as packaging. So packaging can be either a jar or a var. Okay, we can select any. So I'm just trying to make it as a var file. Okay, so let me say my group ID. So I want to create a package, something called as com.online. I want to create a package, something called as com.online. So under the artifact ID, let me try to say Hibernate practice, or I will simply say Hibernate project. So you can give any name. Hibernate, like your artifact ID is nothing but your project name. So you can give any name. So in our case, I'm trying to give it as Hibernate project, and my group ID, I'm trying to give it as com.online. Means under my Hibernate project, I want to create a package with name something called as com.online. Okay, so let us try to click on finish. So once we clicked on finish button, so it tried to create you a project with name something called as Hibernate project. So let us try to open, and we'll just try to see the folder structure. So let me just try to say source main, and then we have Java. So whenever you are going to create any Maven project, whenever we are going to create any Maven project, so the folder structure should be source main Java. So Java is the place where we are going to write all your Java programs. Resource is the place where we are going to keep all our XML files. Suppose if you are dealing with Hibernate framework, like Hibernate requires some kind of configuration files. So all the configuration file information we are going to keep under resources. And there is something called as web app. Suppose if you are trying to create any web applications, either by making use of Spring or by making use of servlets, then all your HTML pages, JSP pages, and then your JavaScript files, and then your CSS files. So everything we are going to keep under web app. Okay, so the structure, it is something like this, guys. So source main Java. So Java is a place where you are going to write all your Java source code. Then resources is the place where we are going to keep all our configuration related files. Suppose if you are dealing with Hibernate framework, so Hibernate has one configuration file. So we call it as a hibernate.configuration.file.xml file. So we are going to keep all configuration related information under your resources. And web apps is the place, or web app is the place where you are going to keep all your web web related information like your HTML file or JS file or JSP file or CSS. Okay, fine. So before just going, I'll just try to check whether my build path, Java build path is pointing to JDK or not. So if it is not, so we'll try to make it to point to our JDK. So I'll try to select alternate JRE. Let me say JDK 1.8. Let me say finish. And let me say apply. And let me say apply. Okay, so under resources, we are going to create your Hibernate configuration file. So let me just right click on this one. Let me say new. Let us go to other and then let me type XML. Okay, under the XML, I'm going to select the XML file. Okay, I'm trying to under the XML folder, I'm trying to select XML file and then let me say next. Now it is asking for the file name. So what is the file name you want? So you can give any file name. So there is nothing like you have to give something like this only. You can give any file name, but the extension should be .xml. So in my case, I'm going to give it as hibernate.cng.xml. So in my case, I'm trying to give my Hibernate configuration file name as hibernate.cng.xml. Then let us say next. Let me say next, and then let me simply say finish. So now under your resources folder, it created hibernate.cng.xml. Then, okay, so it just created. Now inside this configuration file, so we need to put all your Hibernate related information. Like under your Hibernate configuration file, so we are going to write 3 different types of properties. So the first property we call it as database properties, like what is the database name, what is the database username, database password, and what is the username, and what is the driver that you are trying to use. All that information. Then we are going to keep Hibernate information. After that, you are going to keep your mapping class files information. Okay, so we need to have some schema. So I'm going to copy. I already just kept some schema. So I'm going to copy that schema. So just schema we require. So I'm trying to copy this schema. Okay, I'm pasting my schema, and we require certain database information also. So I'll just copy it and I'll try to explain you guys. Let me just copy it and let me just paste it. Okay, guys, just a second. Let's see. Mapping information. Just simply say mapping. Okay, so in our scenario, we want to use MySQL database. So in my scenario, I want to use MySQL as my database, and from my Hibernate framework, I want to connect to MySQL database. So first we need to specify database details, right? Just now we just discussed, like whenever you want to connect to MySQL database by making use of Hibernate framework. So inside your Hibernate configuration file, so we have 3 different types of properties. So the first property will try to speak about your database information. The second property is going to speak about your Hibernate information, and the third property is going to speak about your mapping classes. So we'll try to see about mapping classes after some time. I mean, like after 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so first step what we need to do is like we need to register the database driver. So I'm trying to make use of MySQL database. So in that case, my database driver will be com.mysql.jdbc.driver. So I'm trying to say hibernate.connection.driver_class. Then I'm trying to specify my MySQL database driver com.mysql.jdbc.driver. Then what is the URL? So I'm trying to say jdbc:/mysql: localhost 3306. So instead of Hibernate database, so I have one more database which means something called as online_driver. trainings. So I'm going to use that database. Okay, I'm trying to specify my database type as online underscore trainings. Then what is the database username? So in case of your MySQL, the database name will be always root. So I'm trying to specify the database name as root. Then what is the password? So password I have given it as Jagadish@1. So this password you are going to get when you are trying to install your MySQL. So at the time of installing your MySQL database, whatever the password you have given, so the same password you have to specify it here. Then, so we are done with the database properties, correct? So register the driver, we specified what is our URL, we specified what is our username, and we specified what is our password. Then we need to specify the Hibernate properties. So under Hibernate properties, we have something called as show underscore SQL. So we are going to keep it as, we can keep either it as true or we can keep it as false. So what exactly is meant by true and what is meant by false? So whenever you are trying to say Hibernate.show underscore SQL as true, then okay, in case of your Hibernate, so nowhere we are going to write any SQL queries. So instead of rewriting our SQL queries, so your Hibernate framework is going to generate an SQL query, right? So when you try to execute your program, after executing your program, so do you want your Hibernate to show your SQL query under your console or not? So that we are trying to specify here. So if you say true, then whatever the SQL query that Hibernate has generated, that query will be shown under your console. If you say false, then it is not going to show that particular query under your console. Then we need to specify the dialect. Okay, we need to specify the dialect. So if you are using Oracle, so we are going to say oracle.hibernate.dialect.oracle dialect. So in our case, we are using MySQL, so we need to specify org.hibernate.dialect.mysql dialect, and then hibernate.hbm2ddl.auto. So we can make it as either create or update, but we'll try to learn about create and update in the next video. Okay, fine guys. So we are done with our Hibernate configuration file. Now, in order to use the Hibernate framework, we need to add dependencies. We need to add Hibernate jars. Okay, we need to add the Hibernate jars. So instead of we downloading the Hibernate jars manually, so what I'm trying to do is like, I want my Maven repository or I want my Maven build tool to automatically download the jar files and try to include it inside your project. Okay, so while creating a project, so we try to create our project as a Maven project, right? So we have something called as pom.xml. If you are trying to make use of Maven as your build tool, so in case of your Maven, so you are going to get an XML file with the name something called as pom.xml. So let us try to open this pom.xml. Then go to, at the last, you have something called as pom.xml file. So by default, it will be coming under your overview. So from here, if you go to the last, you have a tab something called as pom.xml. So go inside this one. So when you go inside this one, if you see here, group ID, it is trying to say com.online, means what is the package structure. Then artifact ID is nothing but your project name. Then forget about the version. Then packaging, we selected it as WAR file. Means when you try to run your Maven project, so it is going to generate a WAR file. So now here we need to add some dependencies. So here we need to add the dependencies. So I have already copy pasted some of the dependencies. So we'll try to paste all those dependencies. So copying all my dependencies, Control C. Let us go to our Eclipse. Then let us try to paste it. So the root tag will be dependencies. Under the dependencies tag, you need to keep all your dependencies. Sometimes the schema also will not be proper. So for that reason, I tried to copy the schema also. So let me delete this schema and let us try to paste the working schema. So this is a proper working schema which I have got it from internet. So I'm trying to keep that particular schema over here. Okay, that's it guys. We are done. Okay, so once we are done, so what is the next step? What we need to do is like, so these jar files has to be downloaded. So how to get it downloaded? So first, what I'll try to do, I'll try to go to, so right click on your project, go to team, under the team, sorry, go to Maven, not team, go to your Maven, and then you have an option something called as update project. Select this. Then at the bottom you have something called as force update. So select this out and then say okay. So your project, Maven project, is going to be updated. So once it is updated, then right click on your project, go to run as, and then try to say Maven clean. So if you say, it is trying to say build is success, means it is able to clear your project. So once your project is cleared, then right click on your project, just say run as Maven install, run as Maven install. So whenever you say run as Maven install, now what it is going to do, so what are the dependencies that we have added? So all the dependencies, it will try to download it from the internet. Okay, so our Maven got failed. So let us try to see what is the issue. So okay, something it got failed. So failed to execute code. Hibernate project error assembling where. Okay, so we'll just try to convert it as a project facets. So let us go to project properties. Somewhere here we'll be able to see something called as project. So under this Java, we'll try to select 1.8 version. Okay, runtime. We don't want any runtimes. Let it be 1.8. Let me say apply and let me say apply and close. Now let us run once again, saying like run as Maven install. Let's go to our properties. Okay guys, so when we try to run it once again, so now the build got success, means why exactly we run it as Maven install, because so we don't want to download the jar files. So instead of we downloading the jar files, so we want our Maven to download, right? So in order to download the jar files which are required for your Hibernate project, so we ran it as Maven install. We ran it as Maven install. So we added couple of dependencies like JUnit as one dependency, Hibernate core as another dependency, and Java assist as another dependency. So whatever the dependencies you are going to add under your pom.xml file, and when you try to run it, so all those dependencies are going to be downloaded from the Maven repository. All of them will be downloaded from the Maven repository. Okay, so once they have downloaded, now we can go with our program. Okay, so now what we'll try to do, okay, so before going to write our program, so let us see what are the tables that we have inside our online trainings. Okay, so till now we have seen from the command line. So now what we'll try to do, we'll try to make use of MySQL workbench. So this is your MySQL workbench, how it looks like. Okay, so inside this MySQL workbench, I have different types of databases. So here we have something called as a database, which means something called as online trainings. So let me just say, right click on it, set as default schema. Then I will simply say show tables. So I think we have only one table. I think student table or some table. I don't remember exactly. So we have employee table. So under your online trainings, we have a table with name something called as employee. Correct? We have only one table. Fine, that's fine. Now let us go to our Eclipse. Now I'll try to create a class. So let me right click on my Java. Let me say new. Let me say class. So class name I will try to give it as student. Then package I am going to give it as com.online. Means when it is going to create a class with name something called as student. So this class is going to be created under a package something called as com.online. So let us say simply finish. So now it created. So in case of your Hibernate framework, so we are not going to create any database. Okay, sorry, we are not going to create any database tables. So instead of we creating the database tables, so your Hibernate framework is going to create the tables for your class automatically. Okay, so in order to do that, so we need to write certain kind of annotations, or we need to make use of a mapping file. So mapping file, it is bit load, it's bit a older version or a older style of coding. So we'll try to go with our annotations. So I'll try to write all the annotations, or before writing annotations, so we'll try to first define variables inside our student class. So I'll simply say private int id. So I'll try to take a set of variables inside my student class. So I'm trying to say private int id. Then I'll try to say private string name. Then I will simply say private int fees. So I am trying to take three variables inside my student class: id, name, and fees. Okay, so I am trying to take three variables inside my student class. First one is id, second one is name, and third one is fees. Okay, id is of type integer type, name is of type string type, fees is of type integer type. Then, okay, now I will try to say @entity. Okay, so I'm going to write an annotation something called as @entity. So what exactly it specifies is like, so this is the class which we are going to persist into your database, or for this class we are going to store the data. That's what your entity annotations tells. Okay, so whenever we say @entity means, so it tells to your MySQL database, or it tells to your Hibernate framework like, this is the class which I want to save it into my database, or this is the class which I want to persist into my database. So that is nothing but your @entity annotation. Then I'll try to specify @table. Okay, so I'm trying to say @table. Now, what is the table name you want to create? So inside my database, I want to create a table with name something called as stud. Okay, so I'm trying to say @entity. Whenever we specify @entity, then in that case, so we are trying to tell that I want to persist this class, or I want to save this class into my database. Then when you want to save inside this class, when you want to save this class, under which table you want to save, or right, we need to save it in some table. For that reason, I am trying to specify @table. And then I'm trying to specify my table name as stud. For a class something called as student, I want to create a table something called as stud. That's we are trying to specify. Then after that, I'll try to specify @id. Okay, so in case of your Hibernate framework, so mandatorily you need to have an @id attribute. If you are not going to have this @id attribute, then in that case it is not going to create the table. Okay, so it will try to give you an error. So that is the reason. So you need to have one integer variable, and you need to annotate with @id. Then I am trying to say @id. Then I will try to say @column. Okay, I'm trying to specify @column, and then for this variable, what is the column name you want to create inside your stud table? So I'm trying to say create a column with name something called as sid. Getting my point, guys? So I have a variable something called as id. For this variable inside your database stud, what is the column name you want to create? So I am trying to say create a column with name something called as sid. Then I have a name variable. So for this, what is the column name you want to create? So I'm trying to say @column, @column, and then I'm trying to specify name is equal to sname. Means for your name variable, create a column something called as sname inside your stud table. Then I'll simply specify @column. So whenever you simply specify @column, so whatever the variable you have with the same variable name, it is going to create a column. Okay. If you want to have variable name and your column name, both of them are same to same, then in that case you can simply specify @column. When you simply specify @column, so whatever the variable name you have with the same name, it is going to create a column. So we are done with this. We are done with our Pojo class. Now what we'll try to do, we'll generate the setters and getters. So in order to generate the setters and getters, so right click, go to your source, and then you have an option something called as generate getters and setters. So I'm selecting this generate getters and setters. Let me say select all, and then let me simply say okay. Now all your setters and getters got generated. Now we are done with our table information. So we are done with our Pojo class. For this Pojo class, what is the table name you want to create? We specified, and at that particular table, what all the columns you want to create. So we try to specify everything. Okay. Now after specifying everything, now next step what we need to do is like we need to create a main class. We need to create a main class. Okay. So we'll try to see. Okay. I'll try to create a main class. So right click on my online folder, and then I'm trying to say class. Then I'll simply say the class name as insert example. I'm trying to say insert example, and inside this class I want to have a main method. So I'm selecting the main method, and then let me say finish. Okay, now it created a class with name something called as insert example, and then inside that class it also tried to create a main method. Now inside the main method we need to do couple of steps, or we need to write a couple of steps. So what are the steps we need to do? So let us try to write our code, and I'll try to explain parallelly. So first step what I'm going to do is like, so I'm going to create an object for my configuration class. So be careful when you are trying to import. So the configuration class, it is from org.hibernate.cfg package. So I'm trying to say configuration cnf is equal to new configuration. Okay, so what I did is like I tried to create a class with name something called as configuration. So inside your Hibernate framework, or the people who develop the Hibernate framework, they have given you one class, and that class name is nothing but configuration. That class name is nothing but configuration. So what we are trying to do, we are just trying to simply create an object to the configuration class. So how we are creating? So I'm trying to say class name configuration cnf is equal to new configuration. We created an object to the configuration class. Now once we have created an object to the configuration class, so inside your configuration class we have a method with name something called as configure method. So I'm trying to call cnf.configure. Okay, cnf.configure, and I'm going to pass my Hibernate configuration file name. So what is our Hibernate configuration file name? Our Hibernate configuration file name is nothing but hibernate.cng.xml, right? So I'm going to pass my configuration file name, hibernate.cng.xml. So pass my configuration file name. Then we just passed the configuration file name, but still we haven't uploaded our configuration file, or still we haven't read the properties from our Hibernate configuration file, right? So how to read? So in order to read the properties from your Hibernate configuration file, so inside your configuration class you have a method with something called as build session factory. Okay, so inside your configuration class there is a method with name something called as build session factory. So what this method is going to do? So this method is going to read your entire Hibernate configuration file. So this method is going to read this entire Hibernate configuration file Okay, and all that information, it is going to store it inside a high level object, and that object is nothing but your session factory object. So I am trying to say session factory. Okay, org.hibernate package. So session factory sf is equal to cnf.build session factory. Getting my point, guys? So inside your configuration class, we have a method which name something called as build session factory. So I'm trying to call cnf.build session factory. When I call to this build session factory, so what this method is going to do is like, it is going to read all the information of your Hibernate configuration file, and all that information, it is trying to store it inside a high level object, and that object is of type session factory interface type. Session factory interface type. Now we read the information. So after reading the information, next step what we need to do, we need to establish a connection from your Java program to the database. So how to establish a connection? So in order to establish a connection, under your session factory, we have a method with name something called as open session method. Getting my point, guys? So we loaded the configuration file, we read all the properties from your configuration file and stored it inside your session factory interface. Now, after reading all the information, next step what we need to do, you need to establish a connection from your Java program to the database. So how to establish a connection? So in order to establish a connection, so inside your session factory interface, we have a method with name something called as open session. So whenever you say session factory.open session, so now it is going to establish a connection from your Java program to the database. After establishing a connection, it is going to return you an object, and that object is of type session object. So I'm trying to say session sc is equal to sf.open session. Okay, so open session method, it is mainly used for establishing a connection from your Java program to the database. Okay, fine. Now, after establishing a connection, now what you want to do? So we want to insert a record into the table. After establishing a connection, I just wanted to insert a particular record into my database. So in order to insert a record into my database, so we require a transaction object. So I'm going to say transaction tx is equal to session.begin transaction. So inside your session interface, we have a method which names something called as begin transaction. So when we call session.begin transaction, so this is going to return you a transaction object. So that is the reason we are trying to say transaction tx is equal to session.begin transaction. Okay, now next step what we need to do is like, now for your Pojo class, we'll try to create an object. So let me say student, our Pojo class name is student, right? So I'm trying to say student st is equal to new student. I'm trying to create an object to my student class. Student st is equal to new student. After creating an object, so inside your student class or inside your Pojo class student, we have ID variable, name variable, and fees variable. We just have these variables, but we haven't saved any values inside these variables. Now, in order to save the values inside those variables, we are trying to make use of setter methods and getter methods. So now what I will try to do, I will try to say student.setID. Okay, I am trying to say student.setID and passing the ID as 111. Then student.setName, then let us try to pass student name as ABCD. Okay, student name as ABCD. Then st.setFees. Let us assume like fees I am going to make it as 10,000 rupees. Okay, now done. We created an object to our student class. We tried to set the student ID. We tried to specify the student name. We tried to set the fees. Now after that, so inside your session interface, we have a method with name something called as save method. So I'm trying to call session.save method and I am passing my student object. I'm trying to pass my student object. So after passing my student object, now I am going to say transaction.commit. So whenever you say transaction.commit, now what happens? So this record is going to be saved permanently into the database. So before executing your program, so last step what we need to do is like go to your Hibernate configuration file, then under your mapping information, okay, specify mapping space class is equal to, we need to specify the fully qualified class name. So your student class, your student Pojo class, it is available inside a package something called as com.online, right? So we have to specify com.online.Pojo class name student. So we are done. Now before executing, once again we'll try to see inside your database online trainings, do we have any table with name something called as student? No, we have only one table something called as employee. Now once we try to execute our program, okay, so once you try to execute your program, so now it should create a table with name something called as stud, and inside that it should insert one record, and that record ID should be 111, name should be ABCD, and fee should be 10,000. Okay, let us try to execute. So let me say right click, let me say run as Java application. Right now if you see, it tried to execute. It is trying to say Hibernate insert into stud. So your Hibernate framework is trying to create an SQL query. It is trying to say insert into stud and then fields sname sid, values question mark, right? So now let us go to our database and then let us try to refresh our database. Now if you see under your tables, so it is trying to show you employee table and stud table, or you can execute this query show tables. Now if you see, earlier it was trying to show you only employee table, now it is trying to show employee table as well as stud table. Now let us say select start from, what is your table name? stud, right? So stud. So if you are making use of MySQL Workbench, so if you are going to make any grammatical mistakes or if you are going to make any syntactical errors, so automatically you can come to know. And whenever you are trying to type, so it will try to show you the hints at the bottom. Okay, so it is trying to show my table stud. Now let me just select it out. Let me say run. Now if you see, SID, it created as SID 111, fees it is trying to say 10,000, sname it is trying to say ABC, right? So we haven't created any table, we haven't written any SQL query. Okay, so automatically your Hibernate framework has created a table and it only tried to generate the SQL query and directly tried to persist our Java object into the database. I hope you understood the class properly. Okay, if you have any questions, you can just provide your questions in your comment section. Okay guys, and I am going to upload this project inside my GitHub repository. So I created a GitHub repository with name something called as Hibernate project. So under this Hibernate project, I'm going to put this entire Java code. I'm going to put this entire Java code. So you can go to my GitHub URL, github.com Giridhar163 under that Hibernate project. So you can download it from here. So if you just try to open this URL, so you have an option something called as clone or download. So just click on this one and you have an option. You are going to get an option something called as download zip. So you can download this entire project as a zip file and you can try to practice inside. I mean, like you can try to upload this project into your Eclipse and you can practice more and more. And after that, for latest information, like if I'm going to start any new online Java batches or if I'm going to start any testing batches, so all that information, I'm going to keep it under my Java online training Facebook page. So for the latest information and latest updates, you can reach out to my Facebook page also. I hope you understood everything properly, guys. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can just provide the comments. You can provide the info. I mean, like you can provide all your queries under the comments. So I'll try to reply you. Happy learning. Thank you.